Hello and welcome to Shading a Sphere. My name is Eric. Today we're going to be talking about shading three spheres three different ways with two different mediums, possibly a third medium, but mostly a mark making technique. We're going to be starting with graphite, charcoal, and then as I said, a mark making technique, the same way you should have done your grayscales, graphite, charcoal, and a mark making technique centered on that 24-inch piece of paper. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to scoot this finished copy up a little bit, and I'm going to be working on this area below. As I do this, I am going to do a quick practice round. So I'm going to get my sketchbook, and in my sketchbook, I'm going to do a couple circles. That's the first thing we're going to be doing, is drawing the circle for the sphere. Obviously, you could come in and you could trace something like this. It's sort of cheating. What I want you to try and do is quickly move your hand and sketch out a circle as best you can without using any utensils to trace. So how I do this is I will lightly put my pencil down and I will start moving my hand. And I'll start to put more pressure down. I'll notice that this is a little bit large here. Not bad. I'll just take an eraser and clean it up slightly. So being able to draw, not a perfect circle, but an almost perfect circle, something that could be perceived as being okay, is going to be a little bit of the challenge. So I'll be able to tell if it's a perfect circle. It's not like really cheating, but give it a go. Even if it's just in your sketchbook and you're a perfectionist and you want to do it with a tracing here, that's okay, but give yourself some circle practice. Okay, so I'm going to be starting with graphite here. I'm going to be drawing myself a circle. I'm not going to be thinking about the cast shadow yet. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So light pressure. Obviously, there's areas that are not perfect on that, but that's okay. You can come back, clean it up just a little bit. Okay, and there are a couple very specific things I need to be thinking about. First of all is going to be light source and the direction of that light source. I'm going to be starting with an HB. You may have noticed that I sketched with a mechanical pencil. That's fine, but when you start adding value, do use your pencils. It will be easier. So the direction of my light source on all three of my first spheres was the top left. So I'm going to try top right this time. So light source is going to be coming from the top right. I'm going to be doing that on all of my drawings. Sorry if I'm in shadow there. You might be able to see it. So I'm going to be doing top right. So there's a couple things I need to be thinking about. First of all is the highlight, the brightest area that is going to be touched by direct light. So that's going to be somewhere in the sphere like here. A lot of times people will put the most dramatic highlight directly on the edge of the circle, and that actually flattens the space. For the same reason, we're going to see why a reflected light later helps, rather than bringing the core of the shadow all the way to the edge. So if you think about this as your lightest value, and then you think moving towards this direction, you're going to be having the core of your shadow. I'll make it a little bit darker. I usually go fairly light when I'm doing these things, but the core of the shadow wraps around the contour. It follows the contour of the circle or the sphere, but it doesn't quite go to the very edge. Same thing with the dramatic highlight here. If this light source were hitting the sphere here, the light would also be bouncing around the object and actually wrapping around a little bit on the edge of the sphere here. That's actually going to give us a more modular representation and be more accurate. The other thing you have to think about, finally, once we get going here, is going to be the cast shadow. And if my direction of light is here, the cast shadow is absolutely going to be coming off this side. I'm not sure exactly where that's going to be, but I'm going to start lightly there. Okay, now I'm going to be moving in to doing a sphere with graphite. Okay, I did my graphite sphere. Quick note, sometimes with the amount of light, sometimes graphite can appear much brighter, especially in the deeper values. I think the illusion is doing that a little bit on the lens right now. If I put a shadow over the sphere, you can see a little bit better that that deep value is there. A little bit of an illusion with the light and the angle right here. But what I attempted to do is go from light to my darkest value. Gets a little bit coarse here. There's still a little bit of texture in the cast shadow as well. But think about the highlight here. This is sort of the light. These are all considered midtones. This would be the shadow, the core of the shadow, the reflected light, and the cast shadow, all developed through one light source on the object. A little bit wonky, got a little bit of an egg form, but that's okay. I'd rather do that than have a perfect circle from tracing something. Okay, so now I'm gonna go straight into my charcoal sphere. I'm gonna try and plan it the same way. About the same size. I am gonna do it the same direction. With my light source coming from the top right. Notice I did sketch with graphite, not charcoal, but now I am going to be coming in with charcoal to add the value. All right, I finished the charcoal sphere. Once again, trying to do very similar things that I did in the graphite sphere, dealing with the highlight, dealing from the light source, middle tones, shadow, core of the shadow, and cast shadow. Looking back, maybe this cast shadow is a little bit large. It'd be pretty easy for me to take an eraser and clean that up just a little bit. Okay, final circle is the mark making circle. So I'm gonna start the same way. My circle developed here. And I'm actually gonna be building with my liner again, rather than my pencil. One reason I'm gonna sort of do this is so that I can make sure that all of my marks are the same value, which is a challenge in and of itself. And when I start, there's a couple of different ways I could do this. I could be dealing with it with hatching and cross-hatching, tight line work that builds up like this. And as I build out, I will continue to build value. Or I could do more of what's called a scribble tone, which is more of what this one was, and develop a space through that. I would recommend kind of picking one and just going for that rather than doing a little bit of each. But as I build this up, you'll notice that I will build really dense mark making starting here, build towards my negative space here, and then also develop my cast shadow as well, all with a mark making technique, attempting to be the same value of mark all the way through. Okay, so there you have it. I did my graphite, my charcoal, and my mark-making scribble tone spheres. Notice that when I used a pen, the value of the mark stayed the same consistently. This is not a ballpoint pen, it's a felt tip pen. So the value will stay the same. When I did it in graphite, it was a little bit easier because I went a little bit lighter, which is technically a little bit against what we are attempting to be doing. So try your best, try and keep all of those lines consistent value. Remember, it's the space around the lines, not the actual lines, that should be giving us the illusion of that value. Pick a light source, find your direction, Give me 3 spheres at the bottom of your grayscales. Remember, your entire page should look something like this when you turn it in, with graphite, charcoal, mark making, graphite, charcoal, and mark making.